The terminal at Atlanta International Airport hummed with controlled chaos. Rolling suitcases, boarding
Look how it
calls
flies,
echoing
just
off
like our
glass
plane.
walls.
Wow,
The sharp
higher.
scent of espresso
Here it
and
comes.
jet
Ready?
fuel blending into something uniquely aviation. It was early morning, the kind of hour where people were either half asleep or already exhausted. Marcus Hale stood near gate C-27, one hand gripping a worn leather duffel, the other holding the small, warm hand of his daughter. 7-year-old Ava Hale bounced on her toes, clutching a pink backpack shaped like a unicorn. Her braids were neat, her sneakers brand new, squeaking softly against the polished floor. She craned her neck to look out the massive window where a gleaming silver jet waited, sunlight glinting off its fuselage. "Daddy," she whispered, like she was afraid the plane might hear her. "Is that really our plane?" Marcus smiled, slow and gentle. "That's the one, baby." Her eyes widened. "The big one. The biggest one today." Ava grinned, missing one front tooth. It had been a long time since Marcus had seen that smile come so easily. To anyone watching, Marcus looked unremarkable. Early 40s, calm eyes, dark hoodie zipped halfway up, jeans faded at the knees, clean but clearly chosen for comfort, not attention. No designer logos, no flashy watch, just a man who looked like he'd come straight from a long night shift somewhere respectable but invisible. What no one in that terminal knew, what no one would have guessed, was that Marcus Hale was worth $11.2 billion. Or that, 46 minutes earlier, he had signed the final digital document transferring full ownership of Altair Global Aviation, including the very aircraft waiting at gate C-27, into his name. The gate agent called, "Pre-boarding for first-class passengers and families with small children." Ava's grip tightened. "That's us, right?" Marcus nodded. "That's us." They stepped forward. The gate agent, Lindsay Cooper, scanned their boarding passes. Her smile flickered just for half a second when she saw seat 1A and 1B. She looked up, looked at Marcus's hoodie, looked back at the screen. Then she smiled again, wider this time. "Welcome aboard, Mr. Hale." Marcus gave her a polite nod and guided Ava down the jet bridge. The air changed as soon as they crossed the aircraft door. Cooler, cleaner, softer. The faint smell of leather seats and citrus wipes. First class. Ava gasped. "Daddy, it looks like a spaceship." The seats were massive, cream-colored leather pods with polished wood trim. Screens the size of tablets embedded in front. A flight attendant, Claire Donovan, approached immediately, her tone warm. "Good morning. Welcome. Can I get you some orange juice for your daughter?" "Yes, please," Marcus said. Ava climbed into seat 1B, running her fingers over the buttons. "Daddy, this one turns into a bed." Marcus settled into 1A, placing the duffel in the overhead bin. Inside it was a laptop that controlled infrastructure contracts on 3 continents, but it looked like gym clothes and books. For the first time in weeks, Marcus exhaled. This trip mattered. 6 months earlier, Ava's mother, Marcus's wife, had died suddenly from a cerebral aneurysm. 1 minute she was laughing at the kitchen table. The next, gone. The world had collapsed inward. Marcus had kept functioning because he had to. Ava needed him solid, present. This flight to San Francisco wasn't business. It wasn't strategy. It was a promise. A new start. Then the cockpit door opened. Captain William Prescott stepped out. Prescott was in his late 50s, silver hair combed back with military precision. His uniform was immaculate, for gold stripes gleamed on his shoulders. He moved with the easy confidence of a man who had never once been questioned in his professional life. He reached the galley, accepted a coffee from Claire, and then his eyes shifted. They landed on row 1, on Ava, then Marcus. The smile vanished. Prescott's gaze lingered, took inventory. Hoodie, boots, skin color, child. His jaw tightened. He leaned toward Claire and spoke in a low voice, sharp enough to cut. "Why are they in 1 Alpha?" Claire stiffened. "They're assigned there, Captain." Prescott didn't look away from Marcus. "Check again." "They boarded with valid." "Check. Again." Claire hesitated, then nodded and pulled up the manifest. Prescott straightened his jacket and walked forward. He stopped directly beside Marcus's seat. Boarding pass. The word landed heavy. Marcus looked up, calm. Good morning, Captain. I said boarding pass. Ava froze mid-button press. Marcus reached into his pocket and handed it over. Prescott studied it like it offended him. He let out a short laugh. Interesting. Is there an issue? Marcus asked. Prescott handed the pass back slowly. These seats are reserved for priority passengers. I am a priority passenger, Marcus replied evenly. Prescott's eyes hardened. Sir, I know the type of clientele we seat up here. And what type is that? Marcus asked. Prescott leaned closer, lowering his voice. But not enough. People who look like they belong. Ava's fingers tightened around the armrest. Marcus felt the shift immediately. The familiar one. The quiet pressure of being assessed, dismissed, decided. He kept his voice steady. Captain, if there's a problem, we can discuss it respectfully. Prescott straightened. Loud now. I'm exercising my authority as pilot in command. There's been a seating error. There hasn't, Marcus said. I'm telling you there has. Passengers began to glance over. Phones paused. Conversations stilled. Ava whispered, Daddy, are we in trouble? Marcus turned to her, smiling softly. No, sweetheart. Prescott crossed his arms. You and your daughter will need to move to economy. Silence. Marcus looked up at him. No. Prescott's lips curled. Excuse me. I paid for these seats. We're staying. Prescott leaned in, his voice cold. You can comply, or I can have airport security remove you. Ava's eyes filled with tears. Marcus felt something settle deep in his chest. Not anger. Resolve. Prescott turned to Claire. Find them seats in the back. Claire swallowed. Captain, the manifest. Now. Marcus stood slowly. You're making a mistake, he said quietly. Prescott laughed. Sir, you have no idea who you're talking to. Marcus met his eyes. You're right, he said. And neither do you. Prescott gestured down the aisle. Move. Ava clutched Marcus's hand as the first whispers began. They stepped into the aisle. And as they started walking toward the back of the plane, Marcus felt his phone vibrate in his pocket. A single message lit up the screen. Alter Global Aviation. Ownership confirmation complete. Marcus didn't stop walking, but his jaw tightened, because Captain Prescott had just made the most expensive mistake of his life. End of Part 1. Part 2. The aisle felt longer than it had any right to. Marcus Hale walked slowly, Ava's small hand locked tight in his. Her head lowered like she was afraid to look at anyone. The soft luxury carpeting of first class gave way to the darker, thinner carpet of business, then premium economy. Each step felt heavier than the last. Whispers followed them. Did they sneak in? Probably an upgrade mistake. Poor kid. Marcus kept his head up. His posture was calm, controlled. But inside, something cold and sharp was forming. This wasn't new. It was just familiar. They passed through the curtain into economy. The air was warmer back here, tighter. The scent of recycled air mixed with perfume and fast food. Seats packed close together. Elbows already competing for space. Captain William Prescott walked a few steps behind them, watching like a guard escorting prisoners. Row 36, he said flatly. Marcus stopped. Separate seats? He asked, already knowing the answer. Prescott nodded. Flight's full. Ava looked up, panic flashing across her face. Daddy. Marcus crouched, bringing himself eye level with her. Hey, look at me. She sniffed. Did I do something bad? That question landed like a punch. No, Marcus said firmly. You didn't do anything wrong. Ever. He helped her into seat 36B, the middle seat between a broad-shouldered man wearing noise-canceling headphones and a woman already asleep against the window. Marcus took 36C. Across the aisle, cramped against a man typing furiously on a laptop. Prescott lingered for a moment, arms crossed. Stay put, he said. Any trouble and we land early. Then he turned and walked away. Ava wiped her cheeks with the sleeve of her hoodie. I wanted the bed seat. I know, Marcus said softly. I'm sorry. She nodded bravely, but her lower lip trembled. As the engines began to hum louder and the plane pushed back from the gate, Marcus felt the familiar weight settle in his chest, the weight of knowing exactly what this was. Not policy, not safety, power, and the abuse of it. The flight attendants avoided eye contact as they passed. Not out of cruelty, out of fear. They'd seen what happened when you crossed Captain Prescott. Up in the cockpit, Prescott strapped in, his mood light. Handled that nonsense, he muttered to First Officer Ethan Brooks, a younger pilot barely 5 years into the job. Ethan hesitated. They had valid tickets, sir. Prescott waved him off. Doesn't matter. Brand integrity. You let one mistake slide, you get chaos. Ethan said nothing. The plane roared into the sky. Back in row 36, Marcus waited until the seatbelt sign dinged off. Then he pulled out his phone. Ava peeked over. Daddy, are you mad? Marcus smiled gently. No, baby. I'm working. He opened his secure messaging app. Scrolled past contacts most people would never believe were real. Then he tapped one name. Jonathan Reed, Interim CEO, Altair Global Aviation. He typed, Jonathan, I'm currently on Flight 482 to San Francisco Airport. Captain William Prescott removed my daughter and me from first class without cause. Publicly, based on appearance. I want confirmation of ownership timestamp and full authority. Please advise when you're ready. The response came in under 10 seconds. Marcus, ownership finalized 47 minutes ago. You hold 100%. What do you need? Marcus glanced at Ava. She had her headphones on now, staring blankly at the screen in front of her. He typed again. I need you to observe, then act. Do not alert the captain yet. Understood. Marcus locked his phone. He leaned back in the too small seat, eyes forward, jaw tight. This wasn't about revenge. It was about standards and accountability. 30,000 feet above the ground, Captain Prescott felt untouchable. But power didn't live in the cockpit anymore. It lived in row 36, and it was paying very close attention. As the flight settled into cruise, Prescott made his announcement, his voice smooth and confident over the PA. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. Marcus listened quietly, every word, every tone, because soon that voice was going to change. And when it did, everyone on this plane was going to hear why. End of part 2. Send part 3. Cruise altitude brought a strange calm to the cabin. Seatbelt signs clicked off. Tray tables dropped. The low roar of the engines settled into a steady, hypnotic hum. For most passengers, the tension of takeoff faded into routine. But in row 36, Marcus Hale was wide awake. Ava had finally fallen asleep, her head tilted awkwardly against the seatback. Her unicorn backpack hugged tight against her chest like armor. Marcus watched her breathe, slow, even, and felt the familiar mix of relief and guilt twist inside him. She shouldn't be back here. Not because economy was bad, but because someone had decided she didn't belong somewhere better. A flight attendant pushed the beverage cart down the aisle. When she reached Marcus, she hesitated. Sir, would you like something to drink? Her name tag read Megan Liu. Her eyes flicked nervously toward the front of the plane, then back to him. Water's fine, Marcus said. She handed him the cup with a soft smile. For what it's worth. I'm sorry. Marcus met her eyes. He didn't say thank you. He didn't need to. Up front, Captain William Prescott was enjoying himself. He lounged back in his seat, one hand resting casually near the throttle, the other flipping through his tablet. The confrontation at the gate had already shrunk in his mind, filed away under problem solved. Some people, he said to First Officer Ethan Brooks, shaking his head, they think money, or whatever they scrape together, means access. Ethan didn't respond. Prescott glanced at him. Something you want to say? Ethan chose his words carefully. Sir, removing compliant passengers without cause can be risky. Complaints. Investigations. Prescott smirked. Investigations are for people without seniority. He tapped the screen, pulling up the flight status. 30 years, Ethan. I've seen trends come and go. Management always backs the captain. That's when the ACARS printer word to life. Prescott frowned. What now? He tore the message off. His brow creased. From Alter Global Aviation, Executive Ops. Subject: Flight 482, Observation in progress. Priority: High. Prescott scoffed. Observation? For what? Ethan leaned in. That's unusual, sir. Prescott waved it away. Probably some audit nonsense. But something prickled at the back of his neck. In row 36, Marcus's phone vibrated again. A new message. Jonathan Reed. We're monitoring. HR, flight ops, and legal are looped in. Captain Prescott is unaware. Do you want cockpit contact now or after landing? Marcus looked at Ava, then at the narrow aisle, then at the faces around him. People who had watched him walk past, judged silently, assumed. He typed slowly. Not yet. Let him finish the flight believing he's in control. Jonathan replied with a single word. Understood. Marcus slipped the phone back into his pocket. Power, he knew, revealed more about a person when it was challenged, but it exposed everything when it was taken away. 2 hours later, the plane hit turbulence. Nothing serious, just enough to jolt drinks and rattle overhead bins. Ava stirred, eyes fluttering open. Daddy, I'm here, Marcus said instantly. The seatbelt sign chimed on. Prescott's voice crackled over the PA. Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing some light turbulence. Please remain seated. His tone was firm, confident, untouchable. The plane smoothed out, but Prescott didn't. Another message printed in the cockpit. Prescott tore it off, irritation creeping into his expression. From Alter Global Aviation, Exec Ops. Captain Prescott, confirm receipt. Instruction. Stand by for executive contact. Ethan swallowed. Sir, executive contact usually means. I know what it means, Prescott snapped. His heartbeat ticked up. Executive contact meant oversight. It meant eyes. It meant something had gone wrong. He thought briefly of the man in the hoodie, then dismissed it. Coincidence. Down in economy, Megan the flight attendant returned with a small tray. I brought her a cookie, she whispered, nodding at Ava. Complimentary. Ava smiled shyly. Thank you. Marcus nodded once. That was kind of you. Megan hesitated. Sir, can I ask you something? Yes. Did you complain? Marcus looked at her calmly. No. That answer unsettled her more than if he had said yes. Another hour passed. The cabin darkened as window shades dropped. Screens glowed. Conversations hushed. Up front, Prescott was growing tense. The SATCOM light blinked. Once, twice, then steady. Ethan stared at it. Captain. Prescott swallowed and picked up the handset. Flight 482. Captain Prescott speaking. The voice on the other end was calm, controlled, dangerous. Captain Prescott, Jonathan Reed said. This is Jonathan Reed, interim CEO of Altair Global Aviation. Prescott straightened instinctively. Mr. Reed, to what do I owe? Confirm for me, Jonathan interrupted. The identity of a passenger you removed from first class prior to departure. Prescott's stomach dropped. There was a seating discrepancy. Name, Captain. Prescott hesitated. Marcus Hale. Silence. Then Jonathan spoke again, slower. And his daughter? Yes. Another pause. Captain Prescott, Jonathan said. Are you aware that Marcus Hale is the sole owner and chairman of Altair Global Aviation? The cockpit went dead quiet. Ethan's eyes widened. Prescott felt the blood drain from his face. That's not possible, Prescott whispered. Jonathan's voice didn't change. Ownership transfer completed at 6:42 this morning, 46 minutes before departure. Prescott's mouth opened. Nothing came out. You removed your employer from first class, Jonathan continued, based on personal judgment. Prescott felt dizzy. I I was exercising authority. Jonathan exhaled slowly. You were exercising bias. The SATCOM crackled. You will finish this flight, Jonathan said. But understand this, Mr. Hale is observing. Every decision you make from this moment forward matters. The line went dead. Prescott lowered the handset with shaking hands. Ethan stared at him. Sir, what do we do? Prescott swallowed hard. I need to speak to him. In row 36, Marcus felt the shift before he saw it. The air changed. Footsteps approached from the front of the cabin. Slow, deliberate. Marcus looked up. Captain William Prescott was walking toward him. And for the first time since boarding, the captain didn't look powerful. He looked afraid. End of part 3. Part 4. The sight alone was enough to silence the row. Passengers in row 34, 35, 36 slowly looked up as Captain William Prescott, the same man whose voice had boomed with authority only hours earlier, walked down the narrow economy aisle. Not storming, not striding, walking, carefully. His uniform was still crisp, but something vital had drained out of him. His shoulders were stiff, his jaw tight, his eyes scanning ahead like a man approaching a verdict. Marcus Hale watched him come without changing expression. He had already won. Prescott stopped beside seat 36C. Mr. Hale, he said quietly. The cabin went still. Marcus didn't respond. Prescott swallowed. May I speak with you? Marcus glanced at Ava. She was awake now, cookie crumbs on her hoodie, watching with cautious curiosity. About what? Marcus asked calmly. Prescott's throat bobbed. About my behavior. Marcus looked around, at the passengers pretending not to listen, at the phone's angle just low enough to record, at the weight of the moment. Not here, Marcus said. You made a scene when you removed us. If you want to speak, do it properly. Prescott nodded, almost reflexively. Yes, of course. He turned to the nearest flight attendant, Megan, his voice barely above a whisper. Please prepare first class. Megan blinked. Sir. Clear seats 1A and 1B. Her eyes widened. Captain, those passengers. I'll handle it. Prescott looked back at Marcus. If you'll allow me, I'd like to escort you and your daughter back to your seats. Ava looked up at her father. Daddy. Marcus held her gaze. Then he stood. I will, he said. On one condition. Prescott straightened. Anything. You apologize to my daughter, Marcus said evenly. Loud enough for her to hear. Clear enough for her to understand. Prescott looked down at Ava. Really looked. Not as a problem. Not as collateral. But as a child who had been scared. He knelt in the aisle. The movement alone sent a ripple through the cabin. I'm sorry, Prescott said, voice trembling. I was wrong. I treated you and your father unfairly, and that should never happen. You didn't do anything wrong. Ava studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded. Okay, that was all. Marcus reached for Ava's hand. Let's go. Prescott lifted the worn duffel bag himself, grunting slightly at the weight, and stepped aside to let them pass. The walk forward was nothing like the walk back. Passengers watched openly now. Some whispered apologies. One woman murmured, Good for you. A man shook his head slowly, ashamed. When they reached first class, seats 1A and 1B were waiting, fresh blankets, reset screens, untouched champagne flutes. Prescott placed the bag in the overhead bin with care. Is there anything else I can do? He asked quietly. Marcus looked at him. Yes, he said. Finish the flight. Safely. Prescott nodded. Yes, sir. As he turned to leave, Marcus added, And Captain. Prescott stopped. When we land, Marcus said. Don't go home. Prescott's face tightened. Understood. He returned to the cockpit in silence. The rest of the flight passed in a strange calm. Ava laughed again, turning her seat into a bed, ice cream in hand. The tension she'd been carrying finally melted away. Marcus watched her, heart steady, but he wasn't done. As the plane began its descent into San Francisco, Marcus sent one final message. Jonathan. Gate reception. HR, flight ops, and security. I'll meet them on the tarmac. The reply came instantly. Already waiting. Up front. Prescott's hands trembled on the controls as the city came into view. He flared late. The landing was firm, noticeably harder than usual. No one complained. Everyone felt it. As the plane taxied to the gate, Prescott saw them. Black SUVs. Company executives. Security. Waiting. His reflection stared back at him in the cockpit glass. For the first time in his career, Captain William Prescott understood exactly where power really lived. And it wasn't in the captain's chair. End of Part 4. Part 5. The plane rolled to a stop with a final mechanical sigh. Seatbelt signs chimed off, but no one stood right away. A quiet awareness had settled over the cabin. Something important was about to happen, and people didn't want to miss it. Outside the windows, the black SUVs sat in a perfect line on the tarmac, engines idling. Men and women in tailored suits stood beside them, badges clipped, posture straight. Airport security waited a step behind. Captain William Prescott remained seated in the cockpit long after procedure demanded he rise. His hands rested on his thighs. Still, heavy. 30 years of muscle memory told him to stand, to lead, to command the disembarkation. Instead, he stared forward. The cockpit door opened. Jonathan Reed stepped inside. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "Captain Prescott," Jonathan said. "Please remain seated." Prescott nodded, throat dry. Back in first class, Marcus Hale stood and lifted Ava into his arms. She wrapped her arms around his neck, sleepy but smiling. "Did we win, Daddy?" she whispered. Marcus kissed her temple. "We did the right thing." They exited the plane first. Not announced. Not escorted with ceremony. Just quiet authority. The jet bridge felt colder than the cabin. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. At the end stood human resources, flight operations, legal, and corporate security. Every department that mattered when truth finally arrived. Jonathan stepped forward. "Mr. Hale, thank you for coming," Marcus said. Jonathan nodded once. "I'm sorry you were put in that position." Marcus looked down at Ava. "She's the only apology I needed." Prescott was escorted off last. No uniform jacket now. No swagger. Passengers watched in silence as he stepped onto the jet bridge and faced the people who had watched him from above for years. HR Director Elaine Turner spoke first. "Captain William Prescott," she said, voice steady. "You are hereby relieved of duty effective immediately." Prescott closed his eyes. Elaine continued. "Pending formal review, your employment with Altair Global Aviation is terminated for violation of passenger rights, abuse of authority, and conduct unbecoming of command. No raised voices. No drama. Just consequence." Prescott looked toward Marcus one last time. Not with anger. With understanding. "I forgot who the job was for," Prescott said quietly. Marcus met his gaze. "No. You forgot who people are." Security guided Prescott away. The SUVs pulled out one by one. Inside the terminal, life returned to normal. Rolling luggage, boarding calls, hurried footsteps. But something had changed. Not just for one man, for everyone who saw it. Later that evening, Marcus and Ava stood on the balcony of their hotel, the city glowing beneath them. "Daddy," Ava said. "Why was he mean?" Marcus thought for a moment. "Sometimes people think their seat makes them important." She nodded seriously. "But you didn't sit in the big seat." Marcus smiled. "No, I didn't need to." He tucked her into bed, turned off the light, and stood there a moment longer, listening to her breathe. Power, he knew, was quiet. It didn't shout. It didn't humiliate. It didn't need to prove itself. Protected. And when it corrected, it did so cleanly. Somewhere in the city, a man was learning that lesson the hard way. And somewhere else, thousands of people would hear this story and remember, you never really know who someone is, so choose respect first, because the seat you're in today is never guaranteed tomorrow.